to Stranded in Pittsburgh. It's all three of us. It's all three of us. I should scoot this way so you can actually see my beautiful face. We have me, Nick Hedrick. We have Nate Breisinger. And we have the muted one, Ethan Morrison, ready to rock and roll on this Thanksgiving Eve. Maybe you're listening on Thanksgiving Day and showing your family that you don't like our podcast and punishing them. That's okay, because a stream is a stream, and that's all we care about is getting those numbers up. Last time it was all three of us, things got a little goofy. A lot of laughter going on. Pretty good time. And I would expect the same this week, as we will be talking about all things Pittsburgh sports in addition to our Thanksgiving food rankings and our final thoughts, which we're going to try once again to refer to it as the last call. It's Thanksgiving Eve. It's the biggest drinking day of the year. You got to bring back the last call name for that. It's where Ethan's headed after this. Come on, we'll pull back the curtain a bit. Bryce looks like he's dressed to do some douchebaggery tonight. He'll be out and about. So, fellas, how we doing?
Doing pretty good. I got that warm feeling in my tummy because Ethan's back on the podcast. I missed him.
He's always missed.
Yeah. I feel so good to be back after paying my dues at my good old job last week. So glad to be back. Glad to talk some sports. Tons of stuff to talk about. A lot of different things going on in the Pittsburgh sports world, and a lot of big news for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
A lot of big news
heading into this over these next couple of weeks.
A lot of big news. We're going to talk about the one thing we don't want to talk about. That's the Steelers' loss to the Browns. I'm not going to say too much about this because there's a lot of things going on these next 24, 48 hours in everyone's life. We don't need to sit and reflect on this game more than we have to. And everything, there's much bigger news that you all know about. That's the Matt Canada news. We'll get into that in a second. Steelers fall to the Browns. It was an ugly game. And it was a very eye-opening loss. And changes needed to be made as if they, didn't need to be already. I think this kind of was the nail in the coffin, which we ended up seeing. But after that game, it kind of felt like, okay, something really needs to happen here. This is not good. You don't beat DTR. Credit where it's due, the Browns defense is really good, but that was not the performance that should have been put out there by the Steelers. When you have a division rival on the fritz like that, they got a second, third string, whatever string you want to consider him quarterback starting. Nick Chubb out, some other injuries. You come out of this gate firing, you come out swinging, and you let them know you're screwed. You're in our world. And the Steelers came out and were like, I'm spinning like a ballerina. That little TikTok sound I hear sometimes from my wife's phone. And it was just like, okay, this is a pretty crappy effort so far. And they had some moments of brilliance. And by some moments of brilliance, I mean, thank God Jalen Warren came to play. And the defense made the necessary adjustments it needed to until the last drive. But yeah, an ugly game. We don't need to talk about it too long after I just rambled about it for a minute. But any thoughts that you really want to discuss before we move into the biggest news of the week here, gentlemen?
I mean, it seemed like the Steelers were doomed from that first drive. I mean, the first two plays probably were safeties that weren't called. And then from there, I mean, pretty disastrous. And I think that, they weren't prepared. And I honestly, it falls on Mike Tomlin from the jump. I mean, yeah, they had the scapegoat and Matt Canada, got rid of him. Kenny Pickett obviously was terrible, but I think it falls on Mike Tomlin. And, everyone was saying, oh, ESPN will just go back to saying, oh, don't worry, he's just working with, a terrible team. He's still the greatest coach. And no, I mean, that was a flat out embarrassing performance. And, the Browns put up 13 points. And I wouldn't even say the defense played bad. Yeah, they had that last drive where DTR cooked them up. But it's all offensively. Game planning was terrible. Timeout, miscues in the timeout department. I mean, all around just terrible. And at this point in the season, that can't happen. So, I mean, obviously they had to do something, and that was Matt Canada for them.
Yeah, when you look at this game, it was a tale of this really how the whole season's really panned out for the Steelers, just trying to keep things close until the defense was able to make a stop and make a stand and get a turnover, and then the offense had a chance to come back and take control of the game and get a touchdown to end it. But that offense was just non-existent Sunday, and you just saw that once again where just the offense could not get anything moving except for a couple of runs here and there. Kenny Pickett looked disastrous in that game. Just didn't have anything going well for him at all. Couldn't hit a receiver. Couldn't make any reads. It just was. He looked all out of sorts and really not where someone needs to be or should be. Not needs to be, but should be at this point in his career. I know he's still a young quarterback, but he's 22, 23 games into the year. We should be starting to see some improvements from him, and we have not at all this year. He's still missing wide open receivers. He missed check down routes in that last drive where he decided to fling it down the field, which he hasn't been able to do well either. He's just missing targets where he should be making the throws when it matters. And just that's why this offense faltered. And yeah, you just look at the Steelers team right now and something had to give. And when you look at Kenny Pickett, there's not many more chances that you can give him moving forward to where you can say, yes, we're going to ride him and we're going to ride him till his legs fall off. The time is over now. The time is over now. There's not much more that I can stand to watch him go out week in and week out and just completely look horrendous out on the field. It's just not going to happen. And I know I'm rambling, and I know we're going to get into this more later, but that's just my whole thoughts on that game. It was just not good. It was poorly executed on all fronts.
I think that.
Oh, I need to breathe. I'm like as red as a tomato over here. I'm sorry, Ethan.
I think the last few words there, Ethan, kind of hit the nail on the head. It was a disaster on many fronts. Kenny Pickett has been super inaccurate lately. In this game, I think, is where the most eyes saw his shortcomings. It's the performance I've seen people talk about him most this year. It feels like I think Canada's been scapegoated. I morphed the words. He's been scapegoated so much, and I know the last few weeks, even Nate and I have been talking about, no, Kenny Pickett has a lot of issues, and I think they're finally coming to light. And I feel like this was that crescendo moment for all of that, where his inability to perform was on full display for a lot of the NFL world to see. And Matt Canada now is also gone, and he went out with a bang. Jaylen Warren, we saw the screen cap on Twitter of the little screen pass, and there's like 8 Browns defenders right next to him and no Steelers near him. You get the ball back with a minute and a half. The defense did what was asked of them. You throw the ball on first down, incomplete. Okay, good thing you have Jaylen Warren, who's averaging like 5 yards a carry. You just give him to get a couple yards, then, you dump one off, one of those really short passes you like, and, you get the first down, hypothetically. But no, you gun it all 3 times. Warren doesn't get a touch. Warren's out carried by Najee after that big touchdown run. It makes no sense. It made no sense. And it's easy for us to sit here and crap on things like that, but it's inexcusable. When you watch a performance like what Jaylen Warren did, you don't need to be a mastermind to realize you have to ride the hot hand in that scenario. Every time he touched the ball, he made something happen. He was just breaking off runs when it looked like he was going to get, tackled at the line of scrimmage or for negative yards. And he just makes things happen when he's out there. He makes I don't know what I was about to say. Tomato soup out of tomato crap. I don't know. But it was inexcusable for him not to get a look. It was beyond embarrassing to kill 14 seconds on that last Steeler drive. And it was a truly Matt Canada way for his reign in Pittsburgh to come to a close.
Yeah, I think when you look at that, it was just a culmination of everything that has gone wrong for this Steelers offense. And I personally think that, Canada should have been gone long ago during the bye week, but that's here nor there. But yeah, just looking at how that last game kind of played out and just how the offense could not get literally anything moving and everything was going wrong for that team. It was kind of just the icing on the cake and just everything kind of coming together and basically saying, all right, see you, Canada, you're gone after this game. it just really just showed everyone that even though this team has been winning games and this team has been able to get the job done late, there's still been, like Nick said, just glaring issues with Kenny Pickett. There's been glaring issues just with the offense as a whole. And yeah, it led to the Steelers making their first in-season coaching move since the 1940s. And this is probably one of the biggest, yeah, it is the biggest coaching move since the 1940s in season for the Steelers. And just rarely you see the Steelers getting away from that old school type mentality. And I don't think this is going to be something where you're going to see more of in the future. I just think that this was something that needed to be done, and it was finally done, I think, a little bit later than a lot of people would have thought, but it's done now, and finally the Steelers can start to move forward and hopefully see some improvements that you want to see. But I don't think you're going to see a lot with an in-house hire, an in-house guy that's taking not a hire, but taking a step up and going to run this offense. I don't think you're going to see any major glaring results just for the first week or even the rest of the year.
Yeah, and it's been, it's disappointing for the Steelers, especially. I mean, we circle back a little bit to Mike Tomlin and the way he's performed over the better part of the last decade. You look at 5-6 years ago. I mean, this team had one of the best offenses when Ben Brown and Bell were there, and a terrible defense. Now it's the opposite. When you have a really solid defense that prides itself on takeaways and sets your offense up, and then the offense can't do anything once you're put in prime field position. And I mean, I think Mike Tomlin's complacency came to bite him here. And I think finally they make the move that was probably should have happened at the end of last season. I mean, 2.5 years for Matt Canada and an offense that's been a bottom dweller in the league for the past couple years. I mean, should have probably moved on a little bit quicker than they did. And I agree to your point, Ethan, where it's odd that they pick now, especially in between two huge divisional games on the road, and not at the bye week or the mini bye. But yeah, and then I go to Nick's point about Jaylen Warren. I mean, you have a guy that is really stood out over the past handful of weeks, and you have one last drive to get something done against the Browns and at least go to 7-3, and they don't go with Warren. Like, that was one of the most confusing things. And I know, we were texting about it as soon as that happens. I mean, you have that guy who's ripping off big run after big run, even outside of his huge touchdown run. I mean, he knows how to make players miss. He knows how to get to that second level in the defense, and you don't even give him one touch in the most important drive of the game. So, I mean, it all culminated to this moment of Matt Canada getting the boot.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nate, I love that hat, by the way. Before I get too sidetracked, I just want to say,
Appreciate it. Yeah.
is that a
How to
Rally
wear
House
it. I
hat?
mean, yes.
Wow.
Yes, it
Nice.
is. Yeah.
Nice. Nice. So yeah, Matt Canada officially gets removed, fired, whatever word you want to use. Yesterday, Tuesday. The human in me is like, damn, they had all year to do and they did it right before Thanksgiving. That sucks, but maybe I've gone soft having that kind of thought process. But you see it scrolling on the bottom there for a few minutes. Mike Sullivan, not to be confused with Penguins Mike Sullivan, and Eddie Faulkner been promoted. Correct me if I'm wrong. It sounds like Sullivan's going to be play calling and Faulkner's going to get the actual title of OC, is where they are right now. And like you said, Nate, I don't think we should expect to see insane changes, but maybe just smarter play calling is something I'll take, and maybe some throws over the middle of the field. That would be appreciated. But yeah, other than Eddie Faulkner blocking every Pittsburgh media member during his first full day in the new role, what do we think about this? The new guys at the helm here.
Yeah, like I said, I don't think we're going to see anything glaringly different from this offense. It's still going to be molded around the same system because it's week 12 now. You're not going to see this. You're not going to see Faulkner and Sullivan switch up things schematically this late in the year. The Steelers are still in a position where they're in the playoff, where they're in the playoff race and still can be in the hunt for the rest of the season if they can string together a couple of wins. So there's not really much that you really. I mean, there's a lot of things that people want to see, but I don't think they're going to get those changes with two guys that have been riding the back seat in this offense over these first 12 weeks of the year. I don't think you're going to see any big changes like we've mentioned. But yeah, like Nick said, I think you're just going to hopefully see some smarter play calling and just some more cohesion on the offense where it seems to starting to begin to run more oiled than it was before. And that's what you want to see. And I think that's what you're going to see out of this team now. But in terms of moving forward, how much more leash can you give Kenny Pickett? Like now, after the loss last week, I was fully set on just him riding the bench and giving not Mitch, but Mason another shot at this. He's been the third string guy because there hasn't been anything that has come out positive from Kenny playing, and even Mitch when he's gotten his reps against Jacksonville, and even last year, we haven't seen anything out of him. So just having Kenny ride that back seat, kind of taking a step back from everything, because he looks overwhelmed. He looks like he can't do anything out there on the offense. You need a spark. You need something to spark this team, because where they're at now, and if the goal is making the playoffs and that's really what you're set out for, like this team has the pieces. This team offensively has the pieces. They probably have the most loaded offense that they have in terms of weapons since the Killer Bees were roaming the offensive side of the field for the Steelers. You have the pieces, they just can't put it together, and it's obviously not coming from Kenny. Obviously, you got the running back by committee, Najee and Jalen, and they've been able to put together some pretty solid games, but you need a full cohesive offense to really win games and put points on the board. But right now, it's just not cutting it. So you need to find a spark. And I think you're going to have that with some outside guys. So I give Kenny about 1 or 2 more weeks. If he can't really show, especially with Faulkner and Sullivan now manning this offense, if you don't see results right now, and your goal is to make the playoffs and to push to get over the hump and really have a chance to compete in the postseason, you're going to need to see some changes. And I think a spark is what this offense really needs outside of everything that has gone on.
I think, with the Sullivan and Faulkner, manning the offense, making the calls, I think you give Kenny Pickett 2 to 3 weeks. If nothing changes and he's still the same shell-shocked player that he's been for the past few weeks, you make a move. And I agree. I think you go to Mason Rudolph. Let him get another shot. I've seen some clips surface, of his, recently of some of his games from the past. And I mean, he's hitting guys over the middle. He's throwing deep balls. I know he was a little turnover prone, a little bit like Trubisky, but I think the big thing that hurt him, I think he would have had a better chance of maintaining as a number 2 if I think he got a little gun shy and scared in the pocket after the whole Myles Garrett incident, and after he got concussed versus the Ravens, where they took his face mask off. If you guys remember that clip, but like, I would not mind seeing, especially if the Steelers are able to pull out a win in the next 3 weeks and they're still right in the mix of things, but Pickett's not showing the progress that you want to see or getting back to where he was at the end of last year. I wouldn't put in Trubisky. I would let Rudolph have a crack. We haven't seen him in a while, but I'd love to see him get another chance to show what he has. But in terms of Kenny Pickett, I mean, I think if you're going to look at any changes from these guys with Sullivan and Faulkner calling plays, I think they need to open up the play action a little bit more. I mean, the run game has been so good recently that why not throw in some more play actions, and hopefully it opens up the middle of the field more, which, I mean, there's been plenty of open routes for Kenny to hit. It's just a matter of him hitting them. And then you would officially know that, okay, he can't hit the broadside of a barn to begin with. Let's see if he can do it moving forward. And if he can't, with some more diverse play calling, especially because Warren and Harris, the 1-2 punch has been pretty strong recently. I mean, that's when you're really going to know whether or not Pickett's the guy moving forward this next 2 to 3 weeks.
I agree. If you look at the Steelers' schedule, it's not hard. It's not a difficult schedule by any stretch of the imagination. There's probably a trap game or so on there. I think the Colts could give them some trouble. That's not necessarily a trap game, though. I think the Cardinals could be a difficult game for them. That's just a game I think the Steelers might have a big issue with. But you play the Bengals twice without Burrow. You play the Patriots, who I think are one of the only teams in the NFL that rivals their ineptitude on offense. They play the Seahawks, who some people have said are overrated. I'm going to be completely honest. I haven't seen a ton of the Seahawks this year, but I think they can get a close game out of the Seahawks and make it winnable. And I think that's it then. They play the Ravens one more time?
Yeah, I think the last game of the season they play
Yeah, then they play the
Baltimore in
Ravens.
Baltimore.
Lamar
Yep.
Jackson hasn't had a ton of success against the Steelers, but last week of the season, there'll probably be some pretty big seeding / playoff implications on the line. It's easy for this team to get 3 wins and keep Mike Tomlin's sacred streak alive. But I don't think that's what you care about this year. We keep hearing that get brought up all the time, and I'm frankly sick of it. You've invested so heavily in your defense. Ethan, as you mentioned, they have a very talented group of skill players on this offense. They drafted to supplement the line. They brought in some guys on the line. That line still has a ton of issues. I'm not going to say they're where they need to be, but you've invested in so many areas of this team. I think you need not only to make the playoffs, I think you finally need to get a freaking playoff win this year. That seems like a tall order coming off of a loss to DTR and the Browns, but I mean, let's go. There's no excuses now. You have Canada gone. You've made him your scapegoat for the season. Kenny, as you guys have said, give him 2 to 3 weeks. If it's bad enough this week, I would consider pulling him this week. But what you have to do if you pull Kenny, you can't go back and you can't move on to another guy. You can't give it to Mitch and then say Mitch struggles for 2 or 3 weeks and go, all right, then the last 3 games, we're going to give Mason a shot. You can't do that or vice versa, and you can't go back to Kenny. So whoever replaces Kenny, if they so choose to make that decision, that's got to be their guy. They've got to make sure he's ready, and they've got to make sure that they are confident in that decision. And why the hell not make it Mason Rudolph? We saw Money Mitch go in there. He had his pretty little touchdown to George Pickens, and then he threw a rocket chip in the triple coverage, and it got intercepted. We said, oh, yeah, that's why we were chanting for Kenny to start over this guy. Put Mason in there. And it might sound contradictory based on what I just said about this roster, but what do you have to lose? Put in Mason. He hasn't gotten a fair shake, really. He's had some starts here or there. He had the season with the Duck. He had some random starts here and there, whatever. Give him a shot. Give him his due diligence. He's been with this team for a while. Put him in. See what happens. I don't care. Let's see. Let's ride with it. The scapegoat's gone. Ding dong. The witch is dead. Now Kenny's got the pressure on his shoulders. Those Levin mattress shoulders. He's got to be really worried now because if he doesn't show something in these next couple weeks, he's going to be selling mattresses for his new career. And I hope he feels that pressure. I really hope he does because I was sick and tired of this narrative of the Steelers always going for the feel-good story. We drafted the Haywards. We brought in Mike Tomlin's buddies. We drafted the Pitt quarterback who would be selling used cars if he didn't have his COVID year. Happy, woo! I'm sick of all the feel-good stories. It's time to win football games. And Kenny Pickett, I hope he knows he has to win one. I want Kenny to succeed, too. I'm not sitting here trying to dog on Kenny, and I know that might sound really rich given what I just said. But I want to see him succeed, but now's the time for him to step up, show that fake slide, the swagger Kenny Pickett that we saw that COVID year at Pitt. Show us what you can do. The time is up. The time is now. You can't see me. The time is now. All right, here we go. Little John Cena action for you there. That's Bryce's favorite. He wears jorts almost to every social gathering because of that.
Absolutely.
We're going to move on to the Penguins now. Holy crap. I can't talk about this anymore. I'm sorry. Unless you had a final thought, one of you go ahead. If not, Bryce, you know hockey. You start going.
No, I mean, shifting over to the Pens, you had mentioned, when we were coming up with some topics, I mean, what's going on with this team? I mean, and we talked last week, it's just what you're going to have to deal with this year, the roller coaster of a ride, the emotions. This team is old, but they got the star power to put some streaks together, but they're old enough that they're going to lose 6-7 games in a row. But I think, a great bounce back win over the defending champs, and all after 2 really tough losses against the Canes and the Devils. But I think right now, I mean, the Devils are just one of those teams that they're just a rough matchup with the Pens. I mean, they're a quick, young team. I know they've had their struggles early on, but they're going to be solid again. And the Canes, I mean, Pens have only won twice over the last 12 meetings with the Canes. I mean, Carolina, ever since they've had this little, boost over the past 3 years with young players and making deep runs in the Stanley Cup playoffs. I mean, they're a tough team to play against. But the Pens righted the ship against Vegas. So I don't know, just what you're going to expect. But I think the biggest thing right now that you're looking at in this team is two things. There's a lot of injuries starting to mount on this team. Rickard Rakell is out for long term right now. Ruhwedel's on IR. P.O. Joseph's still hurt. A couple other guys banged up. They're calling up Alex Nylander. John Ludwig's supposed to be back after his injury. So there's going to be a lot of different players coming into the mix for the Pens, and we're just going to see how they mesh. But the other thing is the Pens second line has sort of gone non-existent over the past 2-3 weeks. Besides Gino, I think 2 goals. Riley Smith only has 1 point in his last 7 games. He had 2 goals against that Sharks big win, and then since then he's not been able to find the back of the net. Raquel has no goals, but he's out of the lineup. So the Pens, I mean, that's just sort of the feel of this team right now. I mean, they're going to win some, they're going to lose some, and they're going to be right on the cusp of making the playoffs come the end of the year. And they have a big test on Thanksgiving Eve tonight versus the Rangers.
Yeah, Rangers have a very good record this year, but the Pens just beat the Stanley Cup champs and the Golden Knights, as you said. They're kind of unexpected. They've had a few of those wins this year. Kind of goes in the line of that narrative that you're kind of pushing there, which that sounded like an insult. It wasn't meant to be. But yeah, they're going to win some chunks. They're going to lose some chunks. Really quick, last year, one of the big criticisms of the old guard that was in the front office was kind of the mismanagement of when they called guys up and with the cap and all that crap. How do you see that working out this year? What kind of moves do you think they need to make when they bring up these guys from the minors? If that question makes sense to you.
No, I know what you mean. But I think a lot of it has to deal with injuries. And right now, I mean, they're going to have guys coming up left and right, like Nylander. One guy I wish they would have brought up last year was Ty Smith, but that was a whole issue with the salary cap, and he was a younger guy that probably could have played over some of those, veteran pieces that weren't performing well. But this year, they have a lot of guys in the AHL that are former, that played a lot of minutes in the big leagues, like Vinny Hinostroza, who I think was out against Vegas, should be back, I think, tonight versus the Rangers. But yeah, it's just, I think the new front office is probably a lot more aware of how to deal with that stuff than what we saw last year.
Mm-hmm. Nate, you know what time it is? He knows it's Pure Hockey time. Pure Hockey, home of all things hockey, including sticks, equipment, protective gear, bags, NHL apparel, and much more. Use the code in the bio through stadiumscene.com. Pure Hockey, the official sponsor of Penguin Talk. My heart rate's still about 400 from the Steelers content there at the end. That was the most impassioned rant I've had in a long time. And the ghosts of the Morrison household are echoing in the background of my discussions right now. They're excited for Thanksgiving, and so are we. Thanksgiving food rank time. To all the loyal listeners out there, I asked a bunch of people to talk about their favorite foods on our Instagram, and nobody was eager to get back to me. We also we're unprofessional is really what it came down to. The holiday season is just overcoming us. We were supposed to talk about wrong answers only, who replaces Matt Canada. We asked on Twitter. Someone said Matt Canada. Our friend Logan said himself. Did either of you have a fun? It's kind of over now because we missed it by 5 minutes. But any wrong answers only for who replaces Matt Canada?
Chip Kelly.
Wow.
Chip Kelly.
Here, I got you. I got
That's
you.
it.
I got one for you that'll put you through a little bit of a loop. Going outside the realm of football, how about Kenny Pickett's best buddy, Andrew Filipponi? Andrew Filipponi,
Wow.
he seems to know all the right answers. He seems so high on Kenny Pickett. If Andrew Filipponi's there, he's extending Kenny Pickett by 15 years and let him start every single game.
Mm-hmm.
So why not let Andrew Filipponi figure out what's wrong with his best friend out there? probably put a pillow on the sideline for when he goes 3 and out so he can lay down and rest his head and get ready for the next series. So I think that would be a very good hire for the Steelers.
Wow. Well, I was going to say Pat Narduzzi. You need someone who knows Kenny, who can get the best out of Kenny. You got to go with Pat Narduzzi. Pitt hasn't had a good year. He wants to get out of there. Probably not, actually, but why not grab Pat Narduzzi? I think that'd be a very fun little reunion there on the North Shore. But anyway, Thanksgiving food ranks. We went back to it, and now we went to Matt Canada, and now we're back. I'm also open for a Todd Haley reunion. But anyway, rank the top 3 Thanksgiving foods. Do we want to include turkey? Like, other than turkey, do we want to rank the sides or all together?
I have turkey in there, but I can admit it if you want me to.
We'll do other than turkey. Let's rank
right.
the sides. Let's rank the sides.
All right.
We'll start at number 3. I'm a little bit outside of the box here. Maybe not. Maybe I just think I'm special. I'm going with the little crescent rolls. The Pillsbury Doughboy, the little crescent rolls. You get some butter on those, they just melt in your mouth. They're a very good roll. Supplement the dish very well. It's a good starter. Sets the tempo. Get something solid in there. For you guys, it can help absorb some of the beverages that you'll be drinking, getting some of that wheat in the belly there. But for me, they just taste good.
For me, I don't really consider it a side, but I'll go with some nice gravy. Compliments the turkey, the mashed potatoes, compliments everything well. You can dip your little Pillsbury Doughboy crescent rolls in the gravy. You can dip it in the gravy. So compliments the whole dish. You can do a bunch of different things with it. That's why gravy is number 3 on my list.
Okay.
Ethan, can you do that? Can you do that noise again?
I hope you can.
Whoa. gives me flashbacks from the RMU newsroom. My number 3, I'm going a little bit. I mean, I don't know how healthy this is with the way it's cooked, but going with some veggies. The baked carrots. My mom makes great baked carrots and doused in butter. Tremendous. I probably could go for several servings of those. Those are my number 3.
All right. Number 2. I'm going to go with asterisks is what we're going to do. If there is homemade macaroni and cheese, not Stouffer's, not your cop-out like brand, if you like make a mac and cheese bake or something of some sorts, that's my number 2, depending on who's making it. Because my other number 2 also depends on who's making it, and that's mashed potatoes. So give or take, if there's no homemade mac and cheese, get it out of there. I don't want it. That's an insult. We're eating hearty meal, like a hearty meal, home cooked, soul food kind of deal. If not, number 2 is mashed potatoes, which needs gravy, as Ethan said. So Ethan's looking pretty good right now. But what's your number 2?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with stuffing. Stuffing. Everyone has a problem with stuffing. I won't eat a lot of it, but depending on how it's made, and it has to be moist. It can't be that dry crap, that dry crud. No, it has to be a nice, moist, hearty, filling stuffing where you can just get it down. Don't have to, especially the stuffing that's in the turkey. If you stuff your turkey with that stuffing, oh my, just the way it just sits in your mouth and just melts away, and it's a great number 2 option for me.
Nick, I'll tell you, I might have to send you a bowl of my mac and cheese or a plate of my mac and cheese that I made first time yesterday. First time ever making homemade mac and cheese for Friendsgiving. So I don't know how really good it is. I didn't get a whole lot of comments on it. Not that it was bad nor good. I don't know. Who knows? But might have to send you, a plate of it. But my number 2, going back to my childhood, I could eat these for hours and days upon days. The dinner rolls.
Oh.
Give me that butter. The dinner rolls, tremendous. My number 2.
Spread the butter. There we go. That's hard with that minimal box. I like it. Obviously, a very similar number 3 for me. But now it's time for number 1. Stuffing. It's stuffing, but you got to make it right. As Ethan was alluding to, none of that dry crap. Get it out of here. It needs to be moist, like a nice summer's morn. Very moist on the ground. It's gotta get a lot of flavor. You gotta work a lot into it. But good stuffing is an elite Thanksgiving side dish. My favorite Thanksgiving side dish. But you got to put your heart and soul into it. You can't just phone it in. You've got to want it to be great. You've got to want it to succeed. And when you put the effort in, it's felt by all guests. And Bryce, I'd love some of your mac and cheese.
My number one has to be the mashed potatoes. I just love them. Just love myself some mashed potatoes on Thanksgiving. I'll eat a ton of them. I don't know. It's just something about those nice whipped potatoes that just gets me going every Thanksgiving. And besides the main dish,
I'll try not to sit by you when you get
oh
the
my
mashed potatoes.
gosh.
Scoot my plate over.
Yeah, besides the turkey, yeah, mashed potatoes are a top tier
Wow.
Thanksgiving food, and it, like I said, just with the gravy, it just just complements each other very well, and just
Mm-hmm.
mashed potatoes, man. Oh, can't get enough of them.
No, you're not feeding those to the family dog.
No, absolutely not.
Nick, based off your face on when Ethan was talking about the stuffing for his number two, I thought you were like, "Oh, stuffing's terrible," and then I was surprised to hear that your number one was also stuffing. And for the past handful of years, or when I was younger, never was a stuffing person. The past handful of years, grown into it. But my number one is also mashed potatoes. Going with the mashed potatoes. I mean, Ethan, you are on point. I could eat that for days as well. Just tremendous. I don't think there's a bad way to make it. I mean, you said, Nick, that depending on how someone makes it, but if you're making it wrong, then you're not welcome in my house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
But
No
mashed
lumps.
potatoes
No
has to be
lumps.
number.
No,
Uh, yeah, I could do lumps a little bit.
I'm not here to play favorites, but once in a while on Thanksgiving, you get the chunks. You get the chunks, and it's like, oh, ooh. And Nate, yeah, I'm the same way with stuffing. Same way with stuffing. Probably within the last 5 years, I started really getting into my stuffing, really reading about the intangibles of what makes stuffing great, and I've just really just become immersed in all things stuffing on Thanksgiving. But yeah, good choices. I'm glad no one. I thought that'd get a lot more feisty, but I'm glad to see we all have kind of normal palates there. I thought one of them would talk. Shame on me. Anyway, just kidding. Last call, our final thoughts of the evening before this episode that ended up being longer than our normal episodes wraps up. Bryce, you look really happy today. You kind of look like the kid from Up, that nice smile, the nice little hat on. So why don't you start us off?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just want to finish off with talking about, I mean, it's the most wonderful time of year. It's getting into the holiday season. Sports weren't built into the holidays. The holiday season was built around sports. You got football tomorrow all day. College football's wrapping up. We're going to start seeing the championship games. We're going to see the Final Four that'll come out. Hockey's getting into the midst of things. College basketball is getting spicy right now. And that's where I'm going to talk about right now is while I'm out, wherever I may end up tonight, while I'm downing a couple brewskis, I'll be tuning into and trying to keep my best eye on how the Pitt Panthers are doing in Brooklyn as they take on Florida with their biggest test to start the year. And I'm excited for this game. I'm excited for this tournament. They have Florida, they have Missouri. It's a great stepping stone for this program to see where you're at right now. Nice little temperature check because these next four games are going to be real tough for the Panthers. We talked about it last week, Nick, with Florida, Missouri, Clemson, and West Virginia. But this is going to be a tremendous night to see how they do. 9:30 tip. Game's probably going to be over by the time people are listening to this, but nonetheless, I'm excited for it to grab a couple drinks with a couple friends. Maybe I'll stumble into Ethan as the night goes. But yeah, excited for all the sports that are going to be coming on in the next couple weeks, couple months.
Absolutely. I have to go for the Black Friday game on Black Friday. Jets are playing on that Friday, and yeah, it's the first time ever that the NFL is playing a game on Black Friday, and It's one where they had to weasel their way around some things because I read this today. Since 1961, the NFL could not play a game after 6 o'clock on Friday throughout the rest of the day on Saturday while the college football regular season has been going on. And we're going to get that taste on Friday because that game's going to be at 3 o'clock. And they're going to beat out that time. So, yeah, we got that football on Thanksgiving. We got a loaded slate there. Some of the games are underwhelming. That nightcap is going to be a fun one with the Niners. I believe the Seahawks are squaring off in that one. Big NFC West rivalry. So that's going to be fun. And then we're going to get a nice post-Thanksgiving dessert Friday afternoon. And it's just going to be fun. And it's going to continue to roll and into Saturday with a loaded college football slate. So it's a wonderful time to be a sports fan.
Wow. Yeah. It is a wonderful time to be a sports fan. Gone back and forth on what this was going to be about. And frankly, I'm still a little confused on what I'm about to start rambling about. It was going to be a little commentary on the fall of Subway to competitions such as Jersey Mike's and Firehouse Subs and how it must be studied one day as the biggest brand fumble of all time. However, I think I'm going to switch it up a bit and talk about something that has not been touched on yet during this episode, surprisingly. And that is the potential return of CM Punk at WWE Survivor Series on Saturday. He left the company 10 years ago. Little Nick, just after his fight with cancer, was all excited to watch WrestleMania 30. But a few months beforehand, what happened? CM Punk, his childhood hero, walked out the door. He said, I'm done. I'm done doing all these favors for you. And he was gone. He recently reappeared the last couple of years in All Elite Wrestling, another wrestling company. But that ended poorly. Once again, common denominator, but still. But now, there's some rumors he'll be back Saturday. And I don't watch wrestling much, if at all, anymore. I kind of follow along on Twitter because it thinks I'm a fanatic and recommends tweets all the time. So I still kind of know what's happening. But I don't sit down and watch it other than when a single friend, hello Wyatt, invites me to watch, or once in a while when I'm bored of work. But if he comes back, I might have to sit down and make sure I seek out every YouTube video involving that whippersnapper. Also, it's Thanksgiving. And it's a great time to sit down and enjoy sports, whether real, scripted, or make-believe, with your friends. And I'm thankful to have these two friends by my side almost every week. Bryce more than Ethan, because Bryce makes it every week. But you get the picture. Yeah, you get the picture. I'm just rambling at this point. You've probably clicked off and said, please, for the love of God, shut up. And that's okay, because I think I should shut up too. But I'm not done quite yet. Because a few months ago, this wasn't a thing. We thought this was over with. And I'm not going to sit here and act like we have some high and mighty message for all of you. But we all kind of thought this was done. The time to do this had passed. But as an adult now, I know I'm talking in my sarcastic voice, but genuinely, as an adult, where it's not as easy to see everyone, to be able to sit down with these two guys and then our rotating other hosts every couple of weeks, it means a lot to me. And, we're all trying to figure out how to grow up and how to be adults and all that jazz. And at a time of the year where we're just supposed to sit down and be thankful, I'm very thankful that I get the chance to shoot the breeze with two very good friends and make sure we can all check in on each other, make sure everyone's doing okay, and complain about things in Pittsburgh sports and remain optimistic together too, because that's what Thanksgiving is all about. It's not about the perfect mashed potatoes. It's not about finding the most moist stuffing. It's about being with the ones you love, being with the ones you care about. That's all I have. Thank God, am I right? We'll see you next time on Stranded in Pittsburgh. We hope you and yours have a happy Thanksgiving. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go.